Welcome back to the Power Breakfast Show, and we are now in the news review segment. This morning, I'm joined in the panel by two woman representatives, Homa Bay County woman representative, Madam Gladys Wanga. Welcome, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you.
And Sabina Chege, Moranga County woman representative. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sabina. I couldn't find a better place to start our review this morning than the story on page 3 of the Standard. Now, new study shows that men are the weaker sex, and the research says that women have chromosomes that make them withstand adversity. I'm asking this in view of what's happening in the country. A man killing his family, a man running away from his family, ABC, and they're actually quoting the former First Lady of America, Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, a woman is like tea bags. You never know how strong she is until you put her in hot water. Sabina,
yes.
Are women the stronger sex today as far as willpower is concerned?
I think so, and I think one of the strengths that women have that they don't keep things to themselves, and women are accused of being very emotional, but being emotional, they're able to express themselves, and so they don't put things, they don't hide things. And I think what happens with men when they are in trouble or when they face some difficulties, they tend to keep off, they tend to not console, they don't talk a lot. You know, women, we really talk, and we have friends, we have chamas, we have even avenues of expressing ourselves. But for men, rarely will you find that they have a group that they meet, a group that they can be able to express themselves. I think the only grouping that men have is either drinking buddies or something like that. And so most of the times, men, even especially when they retire, you find that when they retire, they are left alone because they don't keep friends. And I think based on that, maybe you'd say women are stronger because they're able to express themselves. But physically, you know, if you look at the men are the stronger sex than women. But I think that ability to be able to express yourself, and especially how we were brought up, especially the African men, you know, you're told you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to show your emotions. So I think that makes them weaker. My
director is wondering where I'm headed with this conversation. Really relax, because I want to ask Mheshimiwa Gladys Wanga, are we suffering the consequences of neglecting the boy child?
Well, I wouldn't say the boy child has been much neglected.
From the Women's Conference in Beijing, the society has been about the girl child throughout.
Yeah, let's talk about this issue of the girl child. And the reason, I think there has been justification to focus on the girl child. And if you look at many communities, even up to now, I mean, the girl is really left behind. Girls, if you ask a father between a girl and a boy who to take to school, and maybe here in Nairobi and other urban areas, it's not the case. But when you go to the rural areas, they'd rather educate the boy than the girl. So there's a lot of justification as to why the focus has been on the girl child. If a girl and a boy have sex, who carries the pregnancy and has to bear the consequences of that pregnancy? It is the girl, and the boy continues with his education. But not to say that we shouldn't focus on the boy, we should as well, and ensure that our boys are at par and keeping pace with the girls. And I think we are not yet there, but we will soon get to a place where the boy and the girl are at par and can then move together. But on the question of who's the weaker sex, I think it's always been very clear, even from your own mother. It says, you know, if your mother passes on, if your father passes on, if your mother remains, you know, they're really able to put the home together and bring the home up. So I think the research is just confirming that in terms of physical strength, the men are stronger. But in terms of willpower and ability to, you know, move things forward, I think the women have always been. So
Isn't it therefore time, ladies, that the society needed to review where they have placed the boy child? Because, like what you said, the boy child is not supposed to cry. Maybe if I have pent-up emotions and the society accepts that I can cry, I will cry and find a solution. But if I'm not allowed to cry because I'm a man, I could end up doing what we saw in Kiambu.
Well, maybe yes, this is the time, but I'm always challenged when I hear people complaining about their boy child. Because Wanga will tell you, even politically, if you look at the number of politicians we have more men than women.
That's by choice.
It's not really by choice.
We have an almost we have a parity in voters.
It is the perception was the women were supposed, their place was supposed to be in the kitchen, and then the men were supposed to be in politics. And if any woman attempted to go into politics, they were labeled and branded other things. But we thank God that the affirmative action came, and now we can have women coming in, and people are now accepting that women can be good leaders. But what I would say, we have many role models, and I think it's a wake-up call for men. Because they are the majority in power, actually in positions, they need to go back and inspire the boy child. I am just tired of schools and doing poems, like showing, and even boys presenting poems, like, you know, we are weaker, or the society is not looking at the boy child, and they are the majority in power. So the challenge is this morning to any man in position: wake up and smell the coffee. Go back to where you came from. Majority of them, when they become rich, they build big homes. The only time we see them in the village is when there is a funeral, or when they go for a fundraiser. They don't even give their story, their background, and that is why majority of the boys, they think you can just get rich. They don't know the path that one has to go through to attain certain status in the society. So I am challenging the men to go back to the society and motivate and inspire and become mentors of the boy child, and don't blame it on women. Our girls are doing well because they can see their mothers are trying to work hard. But when the fathers are absent, we have a lot of absentee fathers. If they get out of work, they go drinking, they come late in the night, they leave in the morning. The boy has nobody to look up to. So men, you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Quite interesting. A very interesting way also to start our paper review this morning. The story on page 3 just tickled me, and I couldn't let it go, especially when I have before me in my panel very concerted crusaders for the rights of the girl child. Now, a quick look at what's making headlines. The Daily Nation this morning: I may form government from exile, says Raila. Opposition escalates election dispute. More about this can be found on page 4 and 5, and this even as the leadership of NASA was meeting for the second day yesterday to try and come up with a common ground as far as the swearing in of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka is concerned to the positions of the People's Assembly President and Deputy President respectively. Also, in the front page, agency now sets rules for varsity admission. A new subject cluster point system will be used to admit students to universities this year. Now, Colleges Replacement Agency says that this cluster of subjects is going to enhance the chances of other children getting opportunities at our institutions of higher learning. The sad story about what happened in Kiambu. Now, it is now emerging that the man accused of killing his wife and 3 children had cut off communication from his family and friends for 4 days and claimed that he had been kidnapped. This is according to his mother, who narrated the story. The story goes on page 2. Of course, page 2 also has an interesting comment by the Agriculture CS, Mr. Willie Bett. He now says the country has enough maize. The government has fought off reports of insufficient maize supplies and maintained that a 2-kilogram pack of maize flour should not retail at more than 115 shillings. Remember, initially the subsidized rate was 90 shillings. And it's moved on. That's page 2 of the Daily Nation, and it's since moved on in some retail outlets to up to 200 shillings. Other stories making headlines, page 3 of the Daily Nation. Now, legalize female genital cuts, says a doctor in court. A medical practitioner argues that the law banning circumcision of girls criminalizes a cultural expression. She has actually filed a case at the Machakos High Court seeking to have female circumcision, also known as female genital mutilation, legalized. Family of boy in racist H&M hoodie move out. This is a story that has been making hits on social media about a black young man who had a hoodie top with inscriptions that appeared to be racist. Page 4 and 5, like I alluded to earlier, the story about NASA and Raila Odinga being quoted as saying he will form his government from exile. Kenya needs support. This is according to the European Union members of parliament. They were deliberating on the report on Kenya's elections. Remember, the report caused a lot of diplomatic concerns from the Kenyan embassy in Brussels, Belgium, when the European Union Observer Mission released the report away from Nairobi, saying that the Kenya government was not willing to give them a chance to release that report locally. Now, page 6 of the Daily Nation, police probe Sonko Kilifi gun drama. A man claims that the governor has been threatening him over a 3.2-acre piece of land he was to sell. Now, police in the coastal town of Kilifi are investigating a case in which Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko and his guards are alleged to have shot at people in the wee hours of Saturday morning. Other stories making headlines, page 8 of the Daily Nation. State allocates 100 million shillings for the relocation of Mama Ngina Girls High School to be moved from Kizingo to Shimolatewa area in Shanzu for lack of space. Quite an interesting story on page 9, and with this, of course, will form the basis of our discussion with my panel this morning. Democracy declining in Kenya. Now, those are the comments of a Washington-based non-governmental organization, Freedom House, which cites the 2017 contest poll for poor showing. Other stories making headline, page 10. Neither guilty nor innocent. Men who died before their cases were determined. Quite a number of them here. Different cases across the board. We have James Kanyotu, former head of the intelligence unit. We have former former minister David Mwiraria. We have Mr. Habel John Nyamu, Kihara Mutu, Wilfred Koinange, Samuel Kivuitu, Eliphas Ruinga, among others. These are people who had cases in court, and they died before their cases were actually determined. Back page of the Daily Nation. Now, agency sets new varsity cutoff points, and this is what was alluded to in the front page. The Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services has now come up with a new cluster points system for subjects that will help enhance chances of students getting opportunities in our institutions of higher learning. The Standard, front of the page. Teachers hit start of new school syllabus. Now, the teachers are in the schools, but there are no learning materials. This is according to teacher's head. He says, what do you expect teachers to do? Let us not fail this system like the 844 system failed. The government must put its house in order. What does NAT say? And I quote Wilson Sossion, the leadership of NAT, nobody is ready to effectively roll out the national pilot study, and fundamentally nobody is ready unless Matiang'i is ready in his mind. Confusion is inevitable when things are being done by force. Publishers, we are in tune and in line with the content given that this is a pilot study. Final approvals were done today, and we expect the books from pre-primary to grade 3 to be in stores by next week. Now, this is what is happening in the education sector. That also has stories on page 4 and 5. Over and above the stories about reporting of Form 1s, the low turnout at the coast, the many cases of children who do not have fees to be able to report to Form 1. Also of interest, European Union House now debates the report on Kenya's elections last year, and they call for Uhuru and Raila dialogue. This and more stories on page 6 of the Standard. Page 7 of the Standard has a story about division in Wiper over the swearing in of Kalonzo Musyoka. The story on the syllabus, running into hurdles, the pilot program, is on page 4 in details, and also on page 5. The story about division in Wiper over Kalonzo oath is on page 7, like I have mentioned to you. Now, there's a report over what we have been talking about at the beginning of this discussion this morning on page 8 of the Standard. Now, the expert report reveals that reveals their family's brutal ending. This is in reference to what happened in Kiambu, where a man killed his children, his wife, and himself, in what is now turning out to have been a case of frustration, probably because of financial issues. Ladies, there we are. We have started with the issue of the family units. We have started with the issue of who to blame and who not to blame. Now let's move on to the issue of education. Sabina Chege, in the last parliament, you chaired the Committee of Education in the country. What is your take on what's happening in the education sector today?
I think there's a little bit of confusion, but I think what we need in the education sector is better communication. Initially, when the new curriculum and the new syllabus was supposed to be rolled out, was supposed to be piloted from year 2018, this was not expected to be done in all schools. Initially, the last time I checked, they were supposed to select a few schools per county, so that then they pilot. And then from 2019, then they start rolling out. But the full implementation of the new syllabus was supposed to be by year 2021. So basically, I think what the ministry need to do is communicate better, give out the information, let them come out clear on which schools were supposed to be piloting, because the expectation that all schools are expecting to have the new materials, new books, this was not supposed to be it. It was supposed to be done in stages, progressively. And so the expectation might be all schools were expecting by this year they have all the new books, they have the new curriculum rolling out, but they were supposed to pilot, and that was initially the plan.
So what should be happening now is a pilot?
It's a pilot.
Which
and
is
not,
going on?
And not in all schools. They were supposed to select a few schools per county, so that then if there are any hitches, then they're able to address them before they then roll out the program to all schools in the whole country.
Mheshimiwa Gladys Wanga, is communication the issue in the education sector? Because apart from this syllabus issue, we have the issue of, is it free day second education? Is it free second education? Should Form 1's report tomorrow? Should Form 1's report next week?
Yeah, I think Matiang'i is trying to bulldoze things. I think you have a boss at education who's trying to have his way or the highway. And I think Sosion has summarized it well. Stakeholders are not ready on this curriculum issue. They told Matiang'i as much, but Matiang'i said, and you know what Honorable Sabina is saying, is not what has been communicated. As far as parents know, it is that this from class 1 to class 3, all schools are supposed to begin the new syllabus. And even myself, I'm a parent of a class 3 child. In the last holiday when they came, they were not given any list of books. They were told, we are starting the new syllabus. So you just bring your child to school on the first day. So I went personally, I took my child. They were just sitting there sort of laughing. Everybody was confused. You cannot
That's the teachers.
Yes,
they didn't know what to do.
They're all confused. The children, they've given them some pieces of paper. Now they're doodling there, you know. Nobody seemed to know exactly what was happening. 2 days later, we got a letter saying, now go and buy the books for the previous syllabus, because this is now beginning in class 1 and 2 only. But also in every school. So class 1s and 2s everywhere are still waiting for materials for the new syllabus. So you have Matiang'i there trying to bulldoze things like education was his house and he can really do anything in it. For you to have an effective system, really, all stakeholders must be on board. They must understand, and probably what Mheshimiwa is saying is the right way. Pilot it, you know, let people understand the process, let people walk with you. And we piloted it last year. We could continue with the pilot, an expanded pilot this year. Then when stakeholders have fully come on the table, and this is one of those things where you might be the boss, but somebody else, even a teacher in the classroom, can tell you, Banawaziri, this is not the way, and you have to hear that. And then there is the issue of the promise of free secondary education. And you know, when NASA was campaigning, we said, we explained what was going to be free, you know, and we would say, when we say uniform, serikali, kitabu, serikali, you know. But then Jubilee said we're going to offer free secondary education. And here we are. The rubber has now met the road. There is no free secondary education. Again, I've been in the village. I've seen all the fee structures. What is claimed to be free is now the day school education. And then, even the day is not free, because you still have parents having to pay for lunch, you know, and that lunch is between 3,500 per term, so it's about just over 10,000 in a year. So parents are still bearing the burden of their children going to school. In fact, if you don't have the 3,500, your child cannot go this term. If you don't have the over 10,000 over the year, they cannot go. So there cannot be a claim that secondary education is free. Again, confusion galore, and this is characteristic of what Matiang'i is doing. Look at the results. Look at how many of our children whose futures are actually coming to an end abruptly. Those who are committing suicide. We cannot explain the distribution curve on our results. with even this new admission rules that are being set, we need to understand how
exactly are they applicable?
How are they taking care of those who scored, because those who scored C+ and above are a meager figure.
Just about 70,000.
So we want to know how are we accommodating the others.
I think
Sabina, would we have done this a better way?
Yes, I'll say maybe, but I think it's good to give the devil its due, and Matiang'i has really done a fantastic job in the education sector. Sometimes when people might be overworked, we tend to blame them, and Kenyans, I think they need a little bit of some push to implement some of these things. As I said before, if I go back to the free day secondary education, because that's what's supposed to happen, the issue of lunch, I think Gladys and myself went to the schools in the village, and you know, no child, and I won't repeat again today, I'm not the Minister of Education, neither am I the Chair of Education, but the initial plan, no child should be sent home because of lunch. Because when we used to go to school, I could get my githeri in a kapepa bag or in a, whatever it was, and I would go to school. So lunch is not compulsory. You should not send any child home because they don't have money for lunch. And again, the standards, what is lunch? Somewhere would decide they want to have githeri.
So what should happen, Sabina?
Every child should be accepted in school, provided they report to school, day secondary school, no child should be sent home. And that is how it's supposed to be. Up to today.
If they don't have money for food,
if they don't have money for food, let them
afternoon lesson.
Yes, and they can carry food from home. I don't think anybody is restricted from carrying food from home. And I think parents should start reporting this to their county directors. We have the sub-county directors, so that we know who are these principals who are sending their children home. If I go back to the, I think the issue of what is happening with the agency and setting the new rules, I think what they have just said is about the standard. Like if they have asked or requested the student to go and review the courses they had, and that one has been happening even before, because by the time you are getting into a certain course, there is minimum requirement. And I am not certain that we have very few students that scored the C+ and above, few numbers. Because initially what used to happen, we could have thousands of students even having A's, but what was the quality? And I think we were all affected. There's no need of an A that was a fake A. Then you admit a student to go and do medicine, and then this student will bribe their way through because they had not really deserved that A, and then they become the doctors. And we have seen the carelessness that have been happening in our society. I think we just need to wake up and be true to ourselves. What kind of a country do we want to have? What are we bringing up, and what are we telling our children? Do we want to be celebrating when people are cheating in the examination? And I think Matiang'i has done a good job. He needs support. He's not a know-it-all. He also needs to have a very open door policy. So the stakeholders, like on this implementation of the new curriculum, the piloting was supposed to be done. And the issue of Gladys, when she said they were told not to go with books this year, the government is supposed to take care of the books. I don't even know why or which school. Maybe she's not in a government school. Because any government school, any public school, the government is taking care of books. So that's why one of the reasons that the children were told they're not going to give you a list of books that you're supposed to buy in the new year, not because of the curriculum.
And later on they were given a list.
No, that's what I said. It's a private school, you see, but for all the public schools...
That was just highlighting the confusion.
Yeah, but it is important for parents to know, and I think what we need is good PR or communication, because Matiang'i cannot be the person communicating what the ministry is doing.
Implementing policies, communicating the policies.
He needs to have to invest, maybe, or the ministry invest in good PR so that they can be communicating directly to the school heads, to the parents, and the parents can know what to expect. But I think we are heading into the right direction. If you look deeper into the new syllabus, we are having a syllabus that gives every child a chance and says every child has a potential. And we are going to have different pathways by the time the kid is in year 4 or grade 4. So it's a good syllabus. Of course, when something is new, there's a bit of some confusion which is expected. But let's support Matiang'i and the team in the education sector. And if it's something that needs to be done, let it be done now.
We need to wind up on this issue of education and move on to other matters. And we can't do that without talking about Form 1 reporting. Look at the turnout at the coast. In one school, only 2 out of 90 children who are called to that school had reported as at yesterday. What's happening?
Yeah, I think there's really cause for concern there, and I'm glad that all the stakeholders from the coast were meeting yesterday to look at what some of the reasons for that would be. And well, I think there is a big concern, and earlier we were talking about even girls, but you realize when you look at the transition rates for girls across the country, it's much lower than for boys. But generally, I think it is a big concern that the transitions are problematic, and whether it is this year that we are highlighting the transition. I think it's always been an issue, but this year I think
it's on the forefront.
It's been highlighted, which is a good thing, so that we are not talking about the rates later, but we are looking at it now and looking for those children now and making sure that they have gone to high school. And I think the media plays a big role here. You see, when the media highlights the issue, all of us as leaders will have to go back to our counties and check with our county directors of education what is actually the transition rate and what can we do about bolstering that transition rate. So I think...
Chege, before you say something, Gladys, would you put a finger on anything for this, for the poor, the puzzle in enrollment?
I think cost is a big issue, especially... I mean, cost is a big issue, because apart from fees, and for us politicians, you understand that apart from just fees, the parent has to think about the uniform. They have to think about books. They have to think about, I mean, exercise books and so on. They have to think about transport. They have to think about all these things that surround the child reporting to school. And for those numbers, which are also huge, who go to boarding school, there's fees. I mean, they have to pay that almost
40,000 in some institutions and 53,000
53,000, yeah, between 40 to 52,000. They have to think about how to raise it and get there. So I think the number of people I have met who are sending their children back to repeat class 8 or whatever it is, just because
so that they prepare,
just
so that they wait for
I think it takes 8 years for a child to be in school, and if one wants the child to repeat to prepare, that would be just 1 year. So I think some of the reasons we should look at. Last year we addressed the issue about the reporting of Form 1. And unfortunately, when we did the amendment of the Basic Education Act, it went to the Senate, and before the Senate finalized with it, we closed 11 Parliament. This is something, even if I'm not in education, I'm going to pick it up now, because we had already...
a hint what was
what was the part of the bill. What we had suggested is that immediately the Form 1's report, the head teachers are supposed to give a report to their county director on how many students have reported and how many have not. And they're also supposed now, also the primary school head teachers, to do like a research and do a report on how many of their children who cleared Form 1, who cleared Friday, have reported to Form 1. The ones who have not reported to Form 1, why they have not reported. We had actually even looked at the mechanism where we can address the most, needy cases. If it's a case where a child, they cannot afford to go to Form 1 and they had passed very well, the government can take up. So part of that bill was supposed to address what we are having now, because it's good to do the research. We know some communities after study 8, some parents prefer their daughters to get married, and this is part of the culture. So they are, apart from the school fees, there are other underlying issues that force children not to go to Form 1. And I saw some of the young men saying, I don't want to go to high school, I want to just go and do a mechanic course. So we need to do a follow-up and know where have these children gone to. And I think when we pass that bill, it's going to address the issue, because it's a responsibility given to the head teachers in the primary school, to the principals who are in secondary school, and also to the sub-county and the county directors of education. And once we have this report, then we're able to do a follow-up. Yeah.
We'll be taking a short commercial break. When we come back, we look at I may form government from exile, says Raila, as opposition escalates election dispute. And Gladys will also be telling us the implications of the affidavit that they signed to support the swearing in of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka as People's President and Deputy President, respectively.